Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'd like to tell you a story about the sport that keeps knocking on the Olympic door. When you hear the word Olympics, what comes to mind? Athletes exploding off the starting blocks, gymnasts flying through air, swimmers slicing through water. You perhaps imagine speed, strength, and sweat. But how about the words Latin dance, samba, waltz, quick step? Elegant dancers in shiny tasseled puffy dresses and tailored costumes might pop up in your minds. You would definitely imagine rhythm and emotion, right? In reality, we rarely place those two images side by sides. But I grew up in the space between them. I've always wondered why these two worlds never seem to meet. Growing up having Latin and standard dancing as my passions, I used to spend hours every day doing something that appears to be art, but feels 99% sport. Executing movements for 10 exhausting minutes with only an interval of 30 seconds before the next dance. I was being trained just like a professional athlete. Then in 2024, something unexpected yet remarkable happened on the Olympic stage in Paris. For the first time, breaking, a street dance born far from the stadiums, took place under the rings. And that became a moment of wonder for me. If breaking belongs there, why not Latin standard? At first, I assumed the answer was simple, but the deeper I looked, the more complex it became. In recent years, the Olympic bid for Latin standard dancing has failed again and again. And so I had a feeling that the answer might not come. And I would be just another wanderer on this blurry and uncertain path. So, how did breaking make its way to the Olympics? Of course it didn't happen overnight. It debuted at the Youth Olympic Games 2018 in Buenos Aires, and later featured at the 19th Asian Games in Hangzhou. Step by step, it proved itself, making a breakthrough in the field of dance sport. And here's what surprised me. Breaking, Latin, and standard are all governed by the same international body, the World Dance Sport Federation, authorized by the International Olympic Committee, or the IOC. All these three dances use formal judging systems, hold world championships for qualification, and follow structured pathways from local to global levels. These are not hobbies, but rather fully developed competitive ecosystems. Technically, they also share key features: structured footwork systems, musical interpretation, performance quality, and athletic endurance. Like breaking, Latin and standard dancing require holistic judging, where technique and artistry both matter. Here's another guide released from the official IOC website. As you can see, breaking prioritizes technique, performativity, and creativity, compared to Latin and standard dancing, where posture, precision, and body control are emphasized. Plus, the World Dance Sport Federation assesses both dances at a maximum objectivity. Up till now, don't you think that all these three dances share almost the same rules and attributes, where the judgings of breaking might somehow seem more subjective than that of Latin standard dancing? If so, why was one welcomed and the others left outside? There are several possible reasons. Lack of uniformity among style is perhaps the foremost argument. This implies the complex historic development of dance sport. To keep a long story short, Latin and standard dancing have long been divided into two streams of dancers. One emphasizing on the elegance and aesthetics of dance, whereas the other focusing on the energy, power, and athletics of dance. It is this segregation in the Latin standard landscape that leads to disparities in style. Next, perception. Breaking is visibly acrobatic, just like diving and skiing, because it contains power moves, spins on hands, elbows, shoulders, and even the head. To a casual viewer like us, this looks undeniably athletic. But Latin and standard dancing are athletic too, but in a different way. Their difficulty lies in control, synchronization, and sustained intensity, which is harder to recognize at first glance. Besides that is image. Latin and standard dancing are often seen as traditional, formal, and even old-fashioned. Breaking, on the other hand, feels modern, urban, and youth-driven. And this was the reason why the World Dance Sport Federation proposed breaking to the Youth Olympics back in 2016, where the Olympic Committee was seeking for an innovative sport catering to the appetites of Gen Zs. But here's what surprised me. By 2026, the global dance market is projected to be worth nearly $4 billion and growing rapidly. Much of this growth is driven by young dancers and digital platforms. Latin dance is forecast to be one of the fastest growing segments worldwide. At major youth dance festivals, over 30 countries participate. Thousands of young dancers compete annually. This is not a fading tradition, yet a global movement, which means that the Youth Olympics ought to get ahead of this trend by including the sport as soon as possible. And the sport is evolving. Recently, solo divisions are introduced by the World Dance Sport Federation to accommodate young dancers, especially young women without partners. Participation surged, and it was a huge success for the Blackpool Dance Sport Festival held just a month ago. The Youth Championships now reach tens of thousands of online views for full-length finals. Social media clips regularly reach thousands more. The audience is there. The athletes are there. The infrastructure is there. And so it all proves to the Youth Olympic Games that the so-called traditional dance sport still earns high youth appeal. And the science is there too. Studies show that youth Latin standard dancers reach physical intensity levels comparable to competitive swimmers and gymnasts. They develop muscular endurance, cardiovascular strength, coordination, and emotional resilience. These are all social benefits emphasized by the YOG. Various examples of innovation have been trialed at the Youth Olympics in the past decade because the committee is described as a catalyst for innovation. In other words, an incubator for new sports and new formats. And that mission matters. Innovation isn't just about inventing something new. Sometimes it's about recognizing something that has been there all along. After looking at all of these facets, the conclusion becomes clear. Latin and standard dancers are already training like Olympians. We are already competing globally. We are already building the next generation of disciplined young athletes. What we are waiting for is recognition. A sport, a young sport, demanding this much sweat, passion, and physical resilience shouldn't be just knocking on the Olympic door, being left outside the Olympic arena. It belongs under the rings. Thank you.